My man, it's great to see you, dude. I know I just said it 2 seconds ago, but it really is good to see your face. It's been, okay, so how long do you think it's been since you did the podcast the first time? Because I had to look this up.
I mean, my thought, I wanted to say 3 years ago. I feel like it was like before that Omnia show in San Diego. I mean, I remember vividly, but I just feel like...
No, you're spot on, actually. It was 3 years. It was like almost 3 years to the day.
Wow. Let's go.
Isn't that crazy, though? Because I remember that day so vividly, too. And now it's like, that was 3 years ago?
Yeah, it feels... I don't know. It's weird.
It is weird, man. Do you have this? I always talk to people about this because there's certain moments and not even significant moments, but just kind of like random moments, like that day where we were hanging out at the hotel before Omnia. Like I have a crystal clear vision of that. Yeah. And then there's other things, you know, arguably like more important things in my life that I have no memory of.
100%. Yeah. I feel like that, especially when you're traveling a lot, like there's so many times that something that happened like a week ago feels like it was a long time ago, but something that happened like a year ago feels like it was just the other day. And you're like, I don't know, just gets confusing.
It gets overwhelming, man. Do you have, I mean, okay, so this is kind of a weird question to start it off, but it's a question I've been asking a lot of people recently is like, do you have any of those memories? Like just the random ones. Not, this isn't the like, what was the craziest show you ever played kind of question, but just some of those random ones, like maybe like a weird person you saw at the airport, or, you know, something somebody said at 5 a.m. that just like runs in your head a lot of the time and you don't know why.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I always am kind of surprised about the little memories that I have when people bring up like a very random show. Be like, do you remember that show in like Lawrence, Kansas or whatever 4 years ago? And I met you after the show and like I gave you this bracelet and it said this on it. And I'm like, wow, actually I do remember that. That's pretty crazy. But like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, I guess maybe some of the very, very random, like I feel like I spent only maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, like ever total doing like shows in like Eastern Europe, but they're all just the most memorable, random, like nothing crazy significant happening. But like, I just remember being like playing in Estonia and just like everything being snow everywhere at all times. And like eating at this old like restaurant that had been there for like 400 years and like just all this, I don't know, just very random little things like you said. But
yeah, well, those are beautiful, man. I mean, especially the Eastern Europe thing. Like I remember playing in Poland I think it was Poland. And I feel like Eastern Europe, when you go there for shows, I mean, obviously for like what you do, there's maybe less call to go to Eastern Europe than if you were like a techno DJ, right?
For sure.
But when you do get to go, it almost has like a more like indie DIY feel to it. Yeah. Like the venues and the shows and the places you go, all of it. Like it was charming in a way where I was like, oh, this is still like indie. Like this isn't, you know, in the States, like a guy like you're gonna, you know, your big shows, they're gonna play, you know, it's big venues owned by big companies, all that kind of thing. But out there, I feel like it's so Wild West.
100%. I feel like bass music too is like drum and bass is popping, and like certain types of bass music, like in Germany is really crazy. And like certain areas, there's like a few specific spots, but most Eastern Europe, like, I don't know. Yeah. It does feel pretty underground when I played there. And like, but it was still like, I don't know. Yeah. It was fun because it did give me like, I don't know. I feel like whenever I play there, I do love being able to rip a few drum and bass songs in my set and have them like be appreciated, you know?
Yeah. So, well, there's that eternal debate, right? I was just talking to somebody about this I feel like every year, everybody in like the EDM community is like, this is going to be the year when drum and bass breaks through to the stage. And I feel like I've just heard that every year for like 10 years in a row. I mean, have you seen, as a drum and bass appreciator that I know you are, does that ever ring true to you? Do you feel like that can ever really happen here?
I mean, I think so. I think it's a slow, steady build, and like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it'll. I mean, I think it will eventually happen. I feel like there's always like kind of when something becomes super popular, it seems like it's a combination of two things that already exist, and like someone kind of combines them together and makes something new. With Skrillex, it was like rock and roll and like crazy electronic music, and then it was like trap music, it's like hip hop and electronic, and it was just kind of just evolving. And it feels like eventually there could be a really nice blend of the two. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean,
I hope so. I mean, I love playing it, and I feel like people like Reaper and dudes like that who are just going super hard in drum and bass and like have a really cool brand, like have a great chance at like, bringing it to like main stages and things like that.
I think so too, man. And I mean, there's people in the States, drum and bass DJs, who have been holding it down for so long too, that, it'd be great to see some of that, like the Diesel Boys of the world, like really get their due. Cause that dude, I mean, Diesel Boy's a better DJ than any of us, Yeah.
I remember seeing Diesel Boy like at one of the first festivals I went to in Baltimore, like so long ago. And yeah, it was like, literally blew my mind. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, he's nuts, man. But I like what you said a second ago about how, the artists we look to as kind of the torchbearers, the people, the pioneers. A lot of times what they're doing is actually kind of a simple thing, right? Of just sort of taking two different ideas, putting them together in a unique way, or just sort of flipping something small about, a genre or a sound. And maybe that's the key. Maybe that's just what hasn't been done exactly right yet in the States, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think like once it kind of feel like it snowballs, once there's like a big drum and bass artist or something, it's like, then people grow up listening to it, are hyped about it. And then, when they make music, they want to make drum and bass. And then there's this whole, revolution of people making that kind of thing. And I mean, I remember hearing Tony Hawk talk about that too. It's like he did this 900 that like blew people's minds. And now there was literally like an 8-year-old kid or something who did like, it's just like ridiculous, but it's a whole generation of people who grew up skating. So obviously people are going to be way better. And I don't know, it feels like the stuff that ends up being huge and popular is generally organic, but it is like, whatever that artist's personal taste or swing on like things that influence them, which, maybe it's rock music in this thing, or maybe it's drum and bass and, bass, like heavier dubstep type stuff or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. And a couple things in there that you said. You mentioned Tony Hawk, and I'm going to put a pin in that and come back to it, because I know you did something with him over quarantine. Yeah. But while we're talking about, artists having an identifiable sound, a style that, inspires another generation of kids to want to be like them. From the last time I talked to you until now, I mean, you've put out such a wide like breadth of music and styles. And I feel like the last time we talked was it was after, you had initially popped onto the scene and you had some big tunes and done some big tours. But I was listening back, and a lot of what we were talking about, you were sort of talking about what I think was going to be kind of the next phase of where your sound was heading. And since then, you've put out music with a ton of different producers, a ton of different like hip hop artists, again, a wide range of styles. I guess I'm saying all this to ask you, do you feel like you've established your sound in a way that you're comfortable with at this point? Like, do you think there is a NGHTMRE sound? Do you feel like you know what you sound like at this point? Because that's a hard thing for producers.
So. Yeah, I mean, I think I like, especially recently, and as the years have gone by, I feel like it's just grown naturally. But I've always kind of like tried to focus more and more on just doing what I like and what I think sounds cool, and then putting it out and not stressing too much about whether it is my sound 100 million %, or whether certain people aren't going to like it or dislike it or whatever.
Right.
Just because it's so easy to get caught up in thinking like that. And I think just from my tendencies of being a producer and like the way I end up doing vocal chops and certain processing methods that I use, or, you know, whatever, synthesizers or presets or things that I use as my go-to sounds and stuff like that. In a way, like I'll play things for people that I think don't sound like me, and they go, oh, I can totally tell this is a NGHTMRE thing, just because of whatever certain little things that I think identify my music. And, you know, I do definitely think a little bit about like, oh, would this fit into my live show or would this not fit into my live show? But in the end, it doesn't necessarily stray me from like just putting out music that I like, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And I mean, part of that I think is just confidence, right? Of, you know, you've been doing this for a while. You've put out enough songs that I think your fan base will follow you. Like, I think it's been, you know, you've kept it wide enough with your sound that I feel like the people who like what they do, they like you for, you know, for your brain and not for one tune or one sound.
Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit of kind of my thought, even when I first put out like the NGHTMRE EP part 1, like the first thing that I did. You know, it has like kind of a hip hoppy song and like a trap banger and like a house kind of song and a melodic song. And I was kind of like, I want to just put out all these, and then so that everybody knows that, I don't know, it's just kind of, there's no set, like I only make this sound, and then your fans are like, why aren't you making this sound anymore after doing it for so long?
Well, it's interesting to hear you say that you were thinking about that even back then, because I think especially early on, a lot of artists aren't really considering that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think probably relative to a lot of people, I had a pretty like well thought out like start of my career in a way. Like, I mean, I had been making music for a while, and, you know, when taking digital music production classes and producing as a hobby and like learning from tutorials and reading manuals and doing all that stuff. And then I went to Icon, and then I finished, you know, 1 year digital music production school, and then I started NGHTMRE. And so like, through all of that stuff, I was thinking about, okay, what am I doing wrong with this first kind of thing? What's going to make it better? And then I met a management, and, you know, it was definitely pretty thought out. And, you know, I was certainly, you know, talking to other artists and, you know, hearing people complain about like, whatever, you know, fans getting mad or upset about someone not making the same sound. And it's like, I've already been making this for 5 years. Like, obviously we all grow and our tastes change and everything like that. So
yeah, well, that's funny too, right? Because you never know when someone started listening to you.
Yeah,
so they might know you for something new, and then, you know, be like, oh, why you just always make that? And you're like, well, look at the back catalog, man.
I mean, that's the thing that I've learned the most, though, is that's still just like one person who's like commenting something or saying something to you, and it's like, it's so easy to get caught up in like what one random person is like saying online or commenting or influencing you, and like, it's just better to focus on, I don't know, I just like try not to even read comments anymore, just because I'm like, oh, if I'm happy with it and I feel good about it, and like, you know, that's all that really matters, I guess.
Oh, that's definitely all that really matters, man. I mean, even because the thing is, like, let's flip this hypothetical situation. Say you were super worried about what everybody thought, and you were making music only to please other people. Even if that music was successful, you wouldn't be happy, right?
Yeah,
and like at the end of the day, yeah.
No, 100%. I mean, I agree with that 1,000,000%. I mean, and, you know, that certainly doesn't take anything away from the value of the fans or the importance of the fans, or like importance of giving back to fans and all that kind of stuff. It can definitely, you can get inside your own head too much if you're just trying to please everybody. I have a freaking 1/3. This tattoo is like a 1/3, and that's what it's about. It's like, it was something my dad always said, and it's a third of, no matter what decision you make, a third of people will approve, a third will disapprove, and a third don't even care. So it's like, just do what, you know, stick to your guns and like trust your, you know.
I love that. I love that, man. And, you know, when you were on the podcast last time, which, by the way, for anybody watching now or listening back later, you know, you got to check out the NGHTMRE Part 1 podcast for the whole superhero backstory. But, you know, we talked a bunch about your parents on that one, but I'm not sure we actually talked about what did your dad do? Like, that's a very inspiring thing to tell a kid. Like, what did he do that gave him that perspective?
I mean, he, well, you know, He was born in Budapest, in Hungary, and he came over to the United States in like mid 50s. There was like Hungarian Revolution going on and communism and everything. So that basically my grandfather escaped, brought everyone to the States, was in like a military refugee camp.
Oh, wow.
Ended up getting a place to live and work and all those kind of things. My grandfather was went back to basically in exchange for taking care of the family and everything, went back to, help in the war and the revolution and stuff. During that process, he died while he was back. So my father grew up with his two brothers and, my grandmother, and they were obviously working super young, growing up, got a loan, went to college, did all those things, definitely full, American dream status,
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know how exactly that played in. I feel like it's just a life lesson kind of more than, he does literally construction materials in North Carolina. It's completely different from what I do and completely different from, everything that I do every day. So it's funny, but I think the reason why I love it so much too is because it feels like it applies to almost everything.
Oh, that's absolutely right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I mean, whether or not you guys do the same thing for work, I think that's so inspirational to, come over from another country and forge a whole new life. I mean, that kind of, again, that's outside of any career. That's just the perspective that kind of thing would give you on life.
Yeah.
That kind of wisdom, I think, is something you can only learn by going through something. Kind of the same way, I mean, this is an awkward segue, but I think it's kind of the same way where, it's hard for people to understand exactly what the lifestyle is like of what we do without actually doing it, right? Because all you see is sort of the social media of it, the Instagram posts, the big festival plays, all that kind of thing. And I know last time we talked on this show, you and I kind of got into the nitty gritty of the stuff that's not so fun about this, the late nights in the airports, the airport sandwiches.
Yeah.
How has it been? We haven't been doing that for a while, right? We're only starting to get back into it now. And I saw, when I knew we were coming to talk, I was looking at some of your social media and just, refreshing myself on what you've been up to. And you made a post right at the beginning of lockdown talking about, that you needed a break and you were going to take some time, make an album, all that sort of thing. Yeah. Obviously, all of us got a break. Yeah. Do you feel like you got what you needed out of that break?
I definitely do. I think more than I ever thought that I could have out of it. I think even at that time, when I posted that, it was I was just super emotionally drained and physically drained and just had been touring so much and had done 2 back-to-back bus tours, which are particularly exhausting. And I think in my mind, I was man, I need 2 months off. That was sounded impossible in my mind. And then 2 months goes by and I'm dude, I need at least a year of relaxing and just organizing everything in my life. And there was just so many things that I feel I just was not worrying about because I was doing stuff on the road all the time. And gave me so much more time to exactly just write music and enjoy having days where I don't have to do something and I can just be in the studio creating just to create and not be I got to go to the studio today so I can finish that up before I go back on tour. And you know what I mean? It was I was just always fighting to catch up before. And this kind of forced me to take the time to be okay, there's literally nothing I can do for a year. So I need to, made me want to plan a big, I was planning on trying to take off time at the end of 2020, October, November, just December, anyways, that kind of thing. Anyways, yeah, exactly. And I was I'm going to write an album then. And yeah, so this time kind of came naturally. And I had music that I had started a little bit, I had a million projects that I had started and I wanted to kind of piece together something a musical piece or story that was more than just songs together that I think sound cool together. It has some meaning or influence, or it tells my story a little better, or like all these types of things. So yeah, I just dove super deep into working on that. And I have one of my a really good friend of mine now, and he's been like a creative director kind of for me and for doing all my graphic design and stuff for the last 2 years, I guess, almost 3 years. And I wanted it to be one long piece of music, like the album to be one long thing that flows together, not necessarily one piece of music, but it's everything flows into each other and has meaning within, and the chord, like the keys of each song flow together, like perform it all in one, album thing, and everything sounds nice together and all that kind of stuff. And, I also wanted to do a video portion of everything, videos for everything, and kind of almost like a film in a way. But I think it's kind of now progressed to where each music video is kind of a portion of the story, but the videos don't necessarily all flow together, but the music will flow together.
Right.
So yeah, I've just been it's mostly done. Honestly, I've got most of the music is finished. There's like a couple last vocals and things that I'm wrapping up, and like there's one other feature that I'm still trying to kind of figure out. My hope is to start kind of rolling it out at the end of this year, because I also have like a billion other songs that I just want to start putting out. And so I'm trying to put out music, as much music as I can, essentially before the album comes out.
Right.
And trying to really scheme like the album tour and making it really cool and special. And, rather than doing 40 giant dates for an album or for the tour or whatever, picking like, I'm going to do like, 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, a very specific like album show, and it will be only in, bigger cities or whatever, places where I can have the custom stage and everything that I want to do for it. And
that's a lot, man.
So it's a lot, but it's cool. I'm really excited. And, we've even been diving. It's very, very into the like 80s, like kind of combined with like future metaverse, like the old 80s like corporation, like dream worlds type
you're
thing.
Speaking
so it's
my
very
language.
Nightmare, like actually kind of dream based, and kind of this whole idea of the metaverse and things like that.
You're speaking my language, man. Is it are you going as far, like is there like an actual narrative running through it?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially it is the hero's journey in a way. Like we're still kind of pinpointing like the final bit of like the actual character, like the main character, whether it's me basically, or whether it just is a figure, or like someone who can kind of like everyone can relate to. But yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I feel like we've probably even talked about the hero's journey like last time on the show or something, but
we might have.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if you're familiar, but it was something we learned at Icon too. We talked about, and it's this, this guy who spent his whole life studying all these religions and trying to figure out what the common theme was. And it ended up being this hero's tale where like, there's a person and they're in their like current state and environment, and they're like sad or unhappy for whatever reason. They want to change it and they, can't figure it out. And they have this call to adventure, and then they, accept the call to adventure and go out into the unknown world, and then they fight all of their trials and tribulations and overcome their biggest fear, and they return home a better person, and like all this kind of, it's this like story that you see in everything, and it's in Lord of the Rings and like the Bible.
Of course, yeah, that's like the backbone of like every famous story. Yeah.
So that was kind of how I wrote the music, is like I'm gonna write the music inspired by these steps of this journey, and like a song that starts, the first one's like kind of this crossing the threshold song. And it's this eerie, uncomfortable kind of like, oh shit, like what am I about to get into kind of thing. And, there's beautiful moments and love moments and like overcoming your, there's one song called Fear and one song called Love that like go together. And it's like this, just crazy dark banger, and then beautiful melodic half. And the last song is called like Another Dose, and it's a drum and bass song.
There we go, bringing it back.
So super excited to do that, and it's called Another Dose. Like I said, it's just kind of like
that's really
doing it all
really
over
cool,
again.
Man. Yeah, I love all of that, man, and I think that's whether it ends up being you or somebody else or just a, generic character. I mean, I think that's like, sticking to the classics as far as structure goes. That's always the way to win,
Yeah. And I think, I mean, we've been going so deep on just the backstory too. Cause I feel like that's something that really gives people context and trying to figure out ways to get the backstory across. And
it can be hard, right?
Even the merch. What's up?
Oh, it can be hard to like get the full concept across.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's one of these things that this dude, my buddy Caleb's been killing it at. Like we have, like, honestly, yeah. I mean, I could go into all of it and just like, it would be hours of talking about random shit, but
maybe once it drops, we can come back and sort of dissect it a little more.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, the idea, like the name that I want to use for it is Dreamverse. And so like for the name of the album and, hopefully eventually have a show and all this Dreamverse stuff. And I think that, it's kind of just goes along. It's super short version, but essentially like, there's either like this kind of government, or it's not a government, it's just a company, a corporation or whatever, a group of people started out in their garage maybe, and they kind of have, made the scientific breakthrough where they've figured out, with whatever combinations of certain DMT and certain frequencies and things like that, whatever, right. They can now, instead of like, they can actually just control you in a dreamverse. Like you could give you a controlled dosage and send you into this dream world, basically. And so within the dream world, there's like other frequencies that you can hear and other frequencies that you can see and all these different types of things. So part of that is the music of the album and all these different types of things. And, most of the album, like for the, like, when the main character is in the dreamverse, it will be animation. And when they're outside, it will be like real life.
I love it, man. It's kind of like, it's kind of like lucid dreaming.
Yeah, exactly.
Think of that. Yeah. That's really, really interesting. It's also like, somebody said it's like Inception, but about drugs. Which is,
kind of, literally a little bit. But it's like something that we almost felt like could happen at some point in a way, and obviously you can go even deeper and get into the multi-universe type like dream world space, but we're keeping it as like kind of a singular universe that you're able to travel into, and some people are using this technology for good and some people are not.
Man,
some people are using it
that's it. I'm just really impressed that you have this level of depth to it, honestly, because I think we're all familiar with like an EDM album drops and whoever the artist is like, oh yes, welcome to my world that I've created for you. But there's not really much there, if you poke at it too much. So I'm impressed, man. This is a lot of detail.
It's definitely been one of those things where like the more that you do it, the more that you want to make it even bigger and better and cooler. So now I'm like, I've been trying to work. I've been working. I did my first virtual like metaverse set during COVID in Decentraland. Like,
yeah. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that was like, it was super cool. And
what was for people who don't know, and by people who don't know, I mean me, what exactly was different? Like, I know it was a VR performance, but what made it different from other VR performances?
It was a new experience for me too. Like I was like met with the Decentraland people. They approached me about it, and I was like, "Please explain to me everything." I don't.
What is this virtual reality?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm familiar, but I was like, and I'm into it, and I love like the technology and everything like that. But I just hadn't spent much time doing it, and I'd read about Decentraland and learned all about people buying and selling their land and like all this crazy metaverse stuff. But essentially, it was inside their casino in Decentraland. So it's this metaverse space. And within the space, you can buy areas of land and build, have virtual architects build whatever you want. So someone built a casino and, people could go in. Essentially, there wasn't even like, it was basically the music was just on. Yeah. So like once you walk into this space in the game, the music starts playing the live set. You can hear me on the mic or doing whatever. I'm just like here in the studio recording it with no one around, like jumping around.
Of course.
And so, it was super cool. But it was like, I was able to, go into the game too and like kind of look around, and we actually did it for the purpose of, it was like when me and Greg Mike, who is a digital artist that, you know, I've always looked up to and stuff, we're doing our NFT thing. And so you could basically go into the casino, into the show, and on the walls was like all the digital artwork, you know, playing
cool,
and rotating and stuff. And you could like click on the digital art and it would take you to auction, or you could go play casino games, or you could do whatever. It was like literally a real casino. So it was crazy. It was like a Vegas show, but it was like...
Well, I was going to say, if you were performing in the virtual casino, did you have to do a virtual Vegas set?
I mean, no. I mean, it was still a nightmare, like banger set, and it was hilarious to be able to walk around. And
oh yeah, man. I mean, some people really went deep. I kind of wish I had, but I mean, I was talking to Must Die, and I mean, I think he like lived part of quarantine in virtual reality.
Oh, I mean, I get it, like 100%. And especially like after traveling to like some of these more remote places, like when you go to Eastern Europe or you go to India or Thailand or whatever. And I feel like I met a lot of fans and people who like don't have like much, but they have their phone and they have like a computer at their house and stuff now. And so they can go online and like hang out with their friend who's in Shanghai and their friend who's in London and Poland and New York, and like, you know, it gives them a reason to buy digital merch and digital things that like, you know, these cool digital collectibles that they can show to their friends and like express their online personality in a way. You know, it makes sense to me. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense to me too, man. It's especially as I know we are both introverts and all that. I mean, for me, if I hadn't, I don't know if you feel this way, but if I hadn't started DJing and making music, I think probably I would have needed an outlet like, you know, some VR thing or some online community, because I needed something to get me out of my shell, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, my goal too for the Decentraland thing too now is like, you know, I mean, we were talking to them and he's like, cool. So like, we can make you, you know, not a casino, but we can make you, you know, I'm like, can we make a Dreamverse? And it's like, well, yes, we could make literally anything. Like, don't think about the laws of physics. And you're just like, okay, what do I even? And so I've been trying to really dive literally into that and be thinking about like, wow, what could we make that's like a virtual space that people can go experience that is the Dreamverse, that's like, you know, inside a little tiny door in Decentraland, you walk inside and it becomes this whole verse, you know, whatever, billion different rooms or different doors were leading to different places and experiences and, you know, that type of thing too. It's like, oh, if you know, have purchased any of these like digital collectibles or things, that maybe you can experience special, like, you know, go hear a special mix or a special song or get special merch or discounts or whatever.
No, that could be so cool, man. I mean, there's definitely been a few. I don't know if you saw what Porter Robinson did with his like online Second Sky Fest. That was crazy.
Yeah, so sick.
Yeah, so nuts, man. And a few other people too have been making. Do you know BT?
BT,
yeah. He did this. He did this crazy piece that's like I'm going to butcher it and he's going to kill me, but it's basically like 24 hours of music that is also like 24 hours of like visual art. And depending on what time of day it is, where you are when you look at it, it's like different.
That's so sick. Yeah, I feel like I've heard people be like, this is possible. Like, you could do that. And then no one's actually done it yet. So I would be stoked to hear that.
Yeah.
I remember like watching BT tutorials like for hours when I was like,
me too, yeah.
Just forever ago.
Well, because he's such a legend. I mean, you know, he was popping in the 90s, you know, like there's it's crazy, man. So many levels to this when you realize, like, isn't that a weird thought? Like, you're still kind of a new artist. You know what I mean?
I know. And also like people, and also an OG, like people will be like, damn, Nightmare's like an OG. I'm like, I only started touring like 5 years ago.
I'm still here.
But yeah, I'm in a way extremely new and also very old already.
Yeah. Yeah. You are new, but you feel old.
Yeah. It's like,
oh man. I mean, here's a question for you. You know, we're talking about all these new possibilities. We talked about you taking a break and feeling recharged after quarantine. Now that things are kicking back up and you're back on the road and some of the old life is coming back in. Is there anything after this break that you're going to change? Anything you learned in quarantine? Anything about the speed of the lifestyle, the way you tour? Have you had any thoughts about changing any of that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I felt like kind of towards the end of things, like I said, I was just so exhausted, and I was in this like same thing, snowball effect of just like booking things so far in advance that I just didn't think that much into my schedule. It's like, okay, like right now it's fucking July or whatever. And, you know, I mean, New Year's stuff is everything for the rest of the year is booked. So
yeah,
like, you know, when I was in it touring that much too, it was even more than that. And it's like February and I'm booking something for November. I'm like, sweet. Yeah, I want to go to Australia in November. Like, sounds right. Good. And then like in July, someone comes along, oh, do you want to play in New York in November? Like the day you get back? And it's like, I guess, yeah. And then like all of a sudden you get to November and you're like, holy shit, I have to go from Texas to New Zealand to like Perth to like Shanghai and then back to like New York. And then you're just like, I don't know. And I was in this loop of like, oh God, I need to like take time off. And it was hard to do it. And with like Vegas and stuff too, because I had my residency and like, so it was nice because now I've been able to sit down with my agent and my managers and be like, what do we want to do? And I'm like, cool. 5-6 shows a month max, like only the coolest, best ones, unless it's like fun underplays where like we know it's going to sell out and it's just a place that I want to go and have fun and like do a great show. So yeah, and I'm like planning more time for myself and for like, you know, I've been like doing just planning for time planning. I feel like is infinitely better. I'm just planning my time a lot better than I was pre-COVID.
That makes sense, man. I think it's hard to plan anything when you're kind of in the middle of the whirlwind of it, right?
Yeah, it was tough for sure. And I mean, you know, it was like I was still approving things. It's not like people were like sending me on the road, like go.
No, of course, yeah.
But it was just like, yeah, of course I want to go make money and play in Australia. Like I always like, of course I, you know, it's just
obviously,
like, I love doing this. So it was what I always wanted to do. But then eventually you just like pushing myself a little too hard.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I mean, so I've told this story on the podcast before, so apologies to listeners or viewers who have heard this, but it's one of my favorites. The first time I ever toured in Australia, randomly on the flight over there, it was flying from LA to Sydney, and very randomly I was sitting next to Paul Oakenfold.
Oh, wow.
You know, speaking of OGs and all that. And we didn't talk really the whole flight until the end of the flight. And then we were just leaving. And I was like, hey, man, sorry to bother you, but, you know, I know who you are. I'm a big fan. And this is like, I was like the little bright-eyed kid. And I was like, it's my first time touring Australia. And I was so excited. And he was very nice, but he asked me about like the routing of the tour. And what I was doing was I was flying from LA to Sydney and then immediately Sydney to Perth, because that's where the first show was. So that's like a 15-hour flight immediately followed by like a 6-hour.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me and he extinguished all of my enthusiasm. He was just like, you booked this tour wrong.
Dude, oh my gosh. I randomly, the only time I met him was we played some festival in Germany and we somehow randomly shared the same transport ride.
Oh, nice.
And he was like he just told me some hilarious stories. He ended up being the nicest guy ever.
He's so funny.
Like, yeah. He was like telling me stories basically of like, you know, going to take like a 13-hour flight and like taking a sleeping pill or something like that. And then like waking up 2 hours later and you're like still on the ground and they're like, sir, you got to get off and like go, like the flight's canceled or something, you know,
right.
It's like, you're just like, oh no.
Yeah. And like, all in his charming accent too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
When I saw him, man, I did a podcast episode with him at his house out in LA, and it was just crazy. I mean, it's when you realize what a legend he is. Cause you know, he was like opening for U2 in stadiums and he was showing me records off his wall and he was like, oh, this Madonna record reminds me, I need to text her for her birthday. And then he just texts Madonna in front of me. I was like, man, I don't even know what we're going to talk about.
That's so funny.
Yeah, man. I love those little, I don't know. Do you feel like music, I'm kind of bouncing around, but do you feel like music just opened up your world in a sense? Because for me, like, whether it's meeting somebody like Paul Oakenfold and hearing all these weird stories, or whether it's going to, you know, we talked about you touring in Eastern Europe and seeing places you'd never seen. Like, I always think about, for me, if I hadn't started doing this, how small my world would probably be right now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel like a lot of the coolest connections and best friends and things like that I've made were kind of random music things that, like, I don't know. I just don't even, there's literally no way I would, like, you know, the Tony Hawk thing, for instance, or like, you know, stuff like that. It's like, there's no way in hell I would have ever been working with this person or like somehow fallen into this path where I met this person or did this stuff. And yeah, I mean, I feel like it's forced me to open myself up to and kind of open myself up to, you know, a little bit more of like, just like, I don't know, touring and being on the road that much, you know, just going with the flow. And
yeah, well, and just being around more people and learning to interact and like have a good time with a lot of different kinds of people.
Yeah, like being on the microphone and like a room full of people. It's like that. Like, I would have literally shit my pants. I mean, I did, like, you know, the first few shows I was like shitting my pants. I was like, this is not like, I do not want to get on the microphone. Like, and you know, eventually I kind of got used to it. But.
What kind of a kid were you, man? I'm gonna guess you were a quiet kid.
Definitely was a pretty quiet kid in general.
Do you have like a big friend group? Like where, you know, if we're splitting up the like stereotypical high school groups, were you a part of any of them?
I was in North Carolina, so I went to like a pretty like small private like religious school. So it was like 40 guys and 40 girls ish, like almost 100 people or something in my grade. So it was like, I knew a few people outside my grade, but realistically I had like 4 or 5 homies who were like my buds. And like, you know, I mean, we played soccer, I guess, but like, I don't know if it was quite, I wasn't into too many cliques. I didn't like join a fraternity when I was in college. I don't know. I feel like I've always like kind of had friends in every group, but never like fully involved in any.
Right. Well, and we may have talked about this the first time you were on this show, but it's been long enough that I don't even care. Back then, like, what kind of music were you listening to? And second question, was it a popular thing, or were you like the odd one out for liking whatever you were listening to?
I think, I mean, I was listening to a lot of stuff. I think in middle school and in high school was kind of when I really started like really getting into music. You know, before then I was just like, I mean, middle school even, and before that I was mostly just listening to like rock stuff that my dad was growing up with or whatever, which was like The Doors or Cream or like Pat Benatar or AC/DC or like, you know, just random like cool rock stuff, like maybe like some 50 Cent, like the oldest 50 Cent like stuff, like hip hop, like Ludacris stuff and like things like that. But then, you know, once I started getting into high school, I was like way into like rock stuff, like indie rock stuff, like Arctic Monkeys. I mean, I loved Red Hot Chili Peppers was like one of my favorite bands ever. I loved like the Black Keys, like Attack and Release album and stuff like that. Rat-a-tat was like, I was super into Rat-a-tat.
Love
like,
Rat-a-tat.
You know, I was into, I don't know, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I did like hip hop stuff. And
do you remember when Rat-a-tat put out that kind of like mashup mixtape thing?
Yeah.
What? I don't even remember what that was called, but that was one of the first times I remember. I mean, it was around the era of, you know, Girl Talk and that sort of thing. But
yeah,
you know, it's funny, until you said that, I had kind of forgotten. I was like, man, that's like one of the earliest, you know, they were sort of predicting what we were going to do, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember, they were making, you know, it was like drums with guitar basically, but not like, I mean, it was mostly electronic drums, you know, with guitar and heavily processed guitar and like, you know, layers and layers and until they sounded like synths, I felt like. At least,
oh, yeah.
And Girl Talk was the thing that got me into dance music and stuff like that. Like, yeah, because he was doing the same thing, sampling some hip hop song and some Rat-a-tat song and some like, you know, Jay-Z song. And then you're like, what? Like, and some other random old rock like song all together and then putting his own drums on it and it sounded good. And I was just like, this is incredible. And, you know, it was like, felt like it worked at every party. And I was just like, man, what a, like, you know, that was the thing that got me. I started making my own, mashups or whatever, like making my own beats or trying to recreate instrumentals and things like that. And that was like how I started, like, reverse dissecting everything.
Yeah, figuring out how it's done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear about, how the ways people start figuring that kind of stuff out. Because at the start, it's such a black hole, right?
Yeah, like, totally.
Yeah, there's no knowledge.
I mean, I think, it's crazy. It's funny. I was just talking to, like, Leo Tricks, I'm sure.
Yeah. Shout out to Leo Tricks.
Some of my favorite music right now.
Incredible producer. I got to get him on this show.
Insane. But yeah, we were talking about this kind of thing, like, how we started, or I don't know how it came up, but it's like, I was using Reason 4 like in high school. That was like the thing that I picked up, the first program I had. And we were talking about the Lucky Date tutorials and like all this stuff. Oh man,
yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, me too. Like I was using like my dad got Reason 4 and then I got Reason 5 like when I turned 8. And I was just like,
oh man,
old. I was like, dang, like not even 10 years old and making music. I started at 18. So
yeah. It's crazy. Don't even get me started on that, man. I mean, or like last year, I had more Kismet on the show here back when they were 15, and and it's insane. I mean, they're starting so young now, and I mean, to be fair, there's more technology and resources now, right? So I think it's maybe a little easier to dive in. Totally. But is there anything you miss from those early days, like the innocence of it? Sometimes I feel like now I know too much about production, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of like, in a way, I mean, I at least felt like at the time when I was starting, I would spend a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever, in the studio, like making a sound, because I felt like I could make a cool, unique sound or something like that. Like, and I would, and it would come up with something. And now it feels like there's just so many millions of sample packs and sounds and every possible thing you could ever want to make. Like, I still do spend time making it, but like, I don't know. It's just everything. There's like Nightmare sample packs, and I'm going through. Right. I'm like, damn, this is pretty sick. Like,
there's There's tutorial videos of like how to sound like Nightmare.
Yeah, and it's like good, and I don't know,
right, you're watching them. Yeah,
I'm like, this is pretty sick. Yeah, might use this.
That's so. No,
but seriously, and so I don't know. I mean, I definitely do miss a little bit of like the freedom of like, I'm going to throw this Goosebumps remix on SoundCloud, and like, it's a Travis Scott song, and like, it doesn't get pulled, you know what I mean?
Right,
like, you kind of just like, whatever, you have the freedom to just put out creative stuff, without having to worry too much. Like, if you wanted to put, your 1 hour DJ mix on SoundCloud and things like that, it's like, and obviously I think, it's important, obviously, to be tracking all this stuff, but it was just a fun time because no one knew what the fuck was going
exactly,
on.
Man. I mean, those
figure out this digital shit somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I think like those transitional moments, right? Like before SoundCloud, like I remember, like Napster and LimeWire days and all that, like all those industry moments where the paradigm totally changes. So much cool innovation happens in those moments. Like, we don't need to talk about the legality of it because that's not our department, right? But like, just creatively, there's so much opportunity when the walls kind of get knocked down like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering what the next thing's going to be now for that kind of thing. But before I get off on a tangent, I wanted to ask you, you were talking about the freedom of those early days. You would spend a couple days just making a cool sound because you felt like it. I was just watching, I don't know if you remember, there's an old video of you that's like a produced video that shows you in the studio like hitting pots and pans in front of a microphone. And some of that early stuff, like the sound design in Street, which I think was, one of the first tunes a lot of people heard from you, all that sort of thing. Do you still do stuff like that? Like, what does your production process look like these days if you, if you're just in the studio without anything specific to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think honestly, I like really have been enjoying like just using like a Prophet and things like that. I have like a nice, 16 voice Prophet that I'll rip through just for hip hop stuff. Like I love like just coming up with little loops and things like that. And I mean, I don't know, it's still like mostly inbox stuff, I guess. You know, I still like feel like I do a lot of collaborations with people, and every time there's some new thing I come out with and I'm like, you know, interested in diving into how this works and how I can utilize it for different stuff like that. But I don't know. That was kind of the thing, is like, you know, I feel like before, at the time, for me to go like snare clank, like it's like doesn't exist 5 years ago. You know, I had to go find it on freesound.org. Whereas now, if I search for a clanky snare, there's like 10 billion options for a clanky snare. So it's like, I find myself doing it less often because I feel like I can find a good version also, you know, and sound selection's everything, but you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be my organic sound if I feel like I'm, you know, spending the time to really just find the right sound, as you know, if I think I know where the right place to go to get it is. And sometimes I will do random stuff like that, whatever, just experiment. Like if I just have a day of experimenting, for sure, I'll do more random stuff where I'm like, I don't even know, you know, just trying to use random sounds or like YouTube videos of random things that I can like chop into weird stuff, or, you know, something where it's not like a splice sample that any person could go click and find.
Yeah.
And, you know, or finding a new synth that maybe like, you know, whatever most people haven't used, or like just, you know, whatever.
Yep.
Experimenting with FM synths.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all that stuff is, you know, clearly like that was something that was fun for you early on. And I think we always have to hold on to the fun of it, right? And like the excitement of what got us into it originally. And you mentioned that, you know, you've been working with a bunch of different people. You've been doing a bunch of collabs. I always think of you as a very collaborative artist. And it makes me wonder, you know, when you're working with somebody else, whether it's a different producer or a rapper or whoever it is, do you think about, you know, how to sort of like allow space for their ideas and their sound and their creativity and still make sure that it ends up sounding like you, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, if it's hip hop, like I, you know, generally am trying to make sure that I've sent them a beat that they like already and they're into it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm always down to get in the studio. Like for the Gunna song, it was like we didn't really have time to do that. So I just was like, had a bunch of beats and then ended up making one the night before, like in my hotel room, that I was like, I'm just going to make something that I feel like he would just vibe with, rather than like stuff that I've already made that's nightmare stuff. And I made a new one and, you know, played it 2 seconds later. He was like, this is the one, let's do it.
Yep.
So, you know, and that situation too, 100%, I was like, especially for the hip hop records and things like that, I'm like, I just want you to make a song that you fuck with and like you really love. And I'm not like, I will make it nightmare after the fact. Like we don't need to worry about, you know what I mean? I don't want to like, I can't bring like a massive crazy banger with like dubstep drums to like a Ferg or something like that, you know? I'd rather be like, cool, let's like, I just want to help you make something really dope and beautiful and awesome and like hard, or whatever vibe you're going for, or like whatever you feel inspired to make right now creatively.
Yeah.
And then I will figure out a way to make it nightmare-y.
Yeah, no, of course, man. I mean, I think that's almost like a different way of being creative, right? Because that way you can almost put yourself back in the position of a fan and just be like, I love what this artist does. And now I get to like make something that they might do something with, you know, that's just exciting.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like sometimes we got to sort of check ourselves and put ourselves back to being just fans of something. I think, you know, for anyone in this career path, there's always that tendency of like, oh, that's cool, I'm going to try that. Oh, this person's doing that, you know, and you try to sort of do it all yourself. But I'm a big proponent. I try to keep a few things where I'm just a fan, man. Like, I got enough to do.
I feel that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, what was it like? You mentioned A AP Ferg, and I think when we last talked, that was maybe like the next big thing that hadn't dropped yet and was maybe about to. And that was obviously that was a big song, but what was the experience like working with him to make that?
Honestly, of like, not even just rappers, of like almost all of the artists I've worked with, it was like one of the most enjoyable experiences. I mean, like literally, I mean, we didn't even, the day that he recorded the vocal, we weren't even in the studio together. Like we sent, like I originally actually met through TJ Maziel, who's one half of like Alexander Smash. I just put out that song with them recently.
That's right, yeah.
And but yeah, we met like years and years ago, and he was producing beats for Ferg sometimes. He was his tour DJ. He helped out like Lil Pump with stuff, and like you know, he would play, you know, he would hype up the crowd before the show, and like he would play like my Dum Dee Dum remix, stuff like that. So we linked up, and I was like, man, I'd love to like produce a beat for Ferg. Like I would obviously love to have him be on a Nightmare song, but like you know, whatever, anything, I'm super down. I'm just a huge fan. And yeah, I mean, like we ended up eventually finding the beat that, you know, I made that was really sick, which originally started actually because I was supposed to make it for like Need for Speed or something.
Oh, okay.
But that's just a little guitar. There's little like car screeches in it and stuff like that.
Oh, that's really funny.
So funny. But yeah, anyway, so I was like, this one, I don't know, it was just the perfect vibe. He fucked with it. It took forever, like so long of them kind of being like, yeah, we should be able to do it this week or whatever. And then one day it was just like, okay, we're going to work on it. And like later that night, it was like done. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. But then the real awesome part was when we did the music video. Cause you know, especially with videos, like, I don't know, just certain people, hip hop dudes and whatever, like bigger artists sometimes will just, you know, show up late or whatever, like, you know, not be there on time, want to leave early, like not, you know, just pull some last minute, whatever, like issue. And he was just so good. He was there early, fucking like, you know, was super nice to me, came right up, was like, you know, just talking whatever, like being really nice to everybody, introducing himself, like, and, you know, we hired like, you know, his barber and his stylist and his favorite director and all those types of people. So he would be comfortable. But, you know, he was out there being like, you know, let's try to get a shot like this maybe, or like, yo, get a photo of us, or like, you know, he stayed. You know, we were like, we'll have Ferg from 2 to 5 p.m. today. Like, that's when we're going to get his shots and like get him out of here just so, you know, he can get on with his day. And he was there till like 10 p.m. just like hanging out, like, you know, watching all the shoots. And like, you know, it was like, that's cool. He clearly was there to make dope shit. He wasn't there to like make some money and go on to the next project, like, which, you know, a lot of people are, especially in hip hop. And so it was really cool to like have that, you know, experience with him, and like, just such a nice dude. And yeah, I mean, we've been basically doing the same process now for this album. We have a follow-up tune that's very kind of similar vibe, and it's going to be on the album. And yeah, it's just like it's his team's just so good, and he's a man.
That's great.
It's awesome.
That's great, man. I mean, it's awesome when somebody gets it. You know what I mean? Like you can tell the whole ASAP crew, I think, has a pretty good track record of picking their spots and really like investing in whatever projects they're doing.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, it's really nice, and it's super rare too, because I think the marriage of EDM with hip hop is always like it's very delicate, right? Like it can go south so quickly, or like a bad song can get made so quickly.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
Like
to nail
part
it.
of that, I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't know if this is the case, but it feels like a lot of time in my experience prior to like really getting people like, you know, that caliber on EDM stuff, like I said, bringing them like something that's not EDM, so it feels like a hip hop thing, and or like you said, sitting with them, figuring out what they want to do rather than like making an EDM banger and then being like, I need to get a vocal on this, you know what I mean? Versus like reverse engineering and being like, let's put him in the situation where he's going to make the dopest vocal possible and then utilize it to make a cool song after the fact. Like, you know.
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah. Well, I mean, what you're talking about is something I talk about on this show all the time, which is in any kind of relationship building you do in your life, whether it's for your career, whether it's for something creative, whether it's just, you know, trying to make a friend, all of that. You know, you have to have a relationship first, right? Like you have to start on the human level of like, how is this person doing today? What mind state are they in? You know, how can I make them feel good? And then you do all those kinds of things. You make a friendship. You know, if you're like me, I mean, I like doing shit for my friends, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel like that what you're saying is just, you know, becomes more and more true every year. Like, you know, people want to work with people they like. And,
yeah.
You know,
I mean, especially at the higher levels, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, yeah, that's actually interesting because I was thinking about you and the people you choose to work with. Obviously, I mean, you and Slander have had this, this, I don't know what you call it, partnership, friendship, whatever, that's carried on through your whole careers. And I know you do a bunch of work with your actual brother as well. And talk about the importance of family and the importance of your team and that sort of thing, because I think you, more than some other people, have consistently kept working with your friends as your career got bigger and bigger.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if there's like one thing that I took away from business school, it was like kind of that of like, not the family thing, but keeping people who you are working with happy and is going to make your life way better and your business way better and everything like that. And making sure that like people feel like their time is, they're appreciated for the time and the effort that they're putting in. And like, especially for something like this, where I'm helping, they're kind of helping me build my vision in a way, it's like, it's very hard to like get people to want to do that. And so it's like, I think finding, Steven and Will early on and Ben Hogan, my agent, and like all these people who kind of like, when we were first starting, like playing them the music and them being like, I believe in this, like, let's all do this and together. And, we've always stuck by each other, Slander too, and like, there's times when Slander's been huge or I've been huge or one or the other. And we've always kind of supported each other and, just tried to keep building the process. And I think also obviously through, like you said, of the years of all the touring and the exhaustion of all that kind of stuff, like, gave me a little bit of like the, want like just appreciation for having a good family and people who do support me and stuff like that and wanting to spend more time with them and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah,
of course, man. I mean, even you and Slander, I think you guys are so paired together in a lot of people's minds, but I don't think a lot of people understand. I mean, that's really rare. I think it's impressive. I think it's laudable that, at the level you guys are at, that you're still choosing to partner together, to work together. And I don't know, I think a lot of people wouldn't do that. I think at a certain point, like we've seen it happen with people we know, right? Like you start off together and then at a certain point, everything gets so big that people just split off for one reason or another. I think it's really rare, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of had a little bit of a strategy too of like spending a year or 2 years of like focusing on Good Vibrations and then spending a year or 2 years focusing on our individual projects, coming back, doing our Good Vibrations tour, leaving, focusing on our shit, coming back. We did the Alchemy tour. Now we're both, Slander's doing Starbase. I'm going to try and do a Dreamverse festival next year. Then like, eventually hopefully have a Good Vibrations thing and, just slowly expand, but still giving, each person the time to like create their own vision separately. And, meanwhile having this, this Good Vibrations kind of as this overall record label and, just kind of like, ethos for like what we both do. And, I think Derek is like such a smart visionary, like he just knows exactly what he wants and no matter how many people tell him he's crazy or it's a bad idea or whatever it is, like he always trusts his gut and he always like wins, you know what I mean? Like it's like he has such a good like ability to just like believe in himself and what he knows is good and like and focus solely on like being grateful for everything that he has and that we have, just trying to literally spread positivity. That's like the only thing that like, I feel like it's like one of the things he thinks about nonstop. And it's like, working with someone like that, I feel like for me, with someone like that who has that mindset, like I let him take the lead on a lot of the Good Vibrations A&R stuff and all those types of things, like, cause he really wants to do it and he has such a good vision for it. Like, someone with that mindset, like I just, I have full faith in them, both of them too. Scott, Scott does, plenty of work too, as like, with the label and with helping us find cool stuff. And he just has such a good, just good taste, I guess, in the end, really was what it is. and a good like mindset and work ethic and things like that.
Well, and again, I don't think people understand how rare and how valuable it is to have people you can really trust with those kind of career decisions, and people you can really share your career with. It's very rare. I mean, let's talk about the label for a second, the Gud Vibrations label. You know, what's going on with it? Because I know you guys have pushed a few different artists, but in a different way than I'm used to seeing a lot of artist labels work. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be completely off base, but what I've seen is, you know, these like bigger projects from, you know, a smaller number of artists that have gotten pushed really hard. What's the state of the label right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one thing, you know, I think we like wanted to focus on too, is this, you know, the Wave Dash and Shady and like a lot of those guys who we just really believed in. And a lot of it was like just putting faith into like their music and stuff. You know, we'd hear updates every once in a while, but we just like, you know, love them as people. They, you know, they just live by all the same things that we do, and we love their music and stuff like that. And so when, you know, when they showed us the album, it was like, this is incredible. I'm so excited. And yeah, I mean, I think we definitely just have kind of focused on, you know, bringing the people back that we believe in and trying to keep them there and keep them happy. And, you know, with Shady, and we have his album coming out now. I mean, we still for sure, like whenever we find cool singles or whatever, we'll sign them and, you know, try and just put whatever cool music that we love on the label. But, I think, yeah, we certainly try and like, I don't know, find people that we like believe in the long term.
Yeah.
Than, you know.
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's a question for you, and it's okay if there isn't an answer for this, but do you think any of your experiences in the music industry so far, or any of Slander's, like anything you've learned, has that gone into how you run the label? Are you able to, you know, for people who are on your label, are you able to, you know, dispense any wisdom that you wish you would have had, or run things in a certain way based off of your own experiences?
A little bit. I mean, I think, you know, just becoming friends with the guys and, you know, talking about those things in general helps. But yeah, I mean, we run the label with Insomniac. So Insomniac does all our back-end stuff, and we basically split everything with them. So it's nice. It feels like to do it through them because of, I don't know, just in my experience, like there's kind of like the middle tier label where, and you know, you end up splitting things half and half a lot of times. Like a lot of Matt Decent stuff, the way I did it was very flexible, easier. Like I retained more of my music rights and stuff like that, but not as much money up front, things like that. Versus like when you go to a major label and they want to give you a bunch of money, but they don't, you know, they want to take all of your rights or whatever, you know. Yeah. And so I felt like we wanted to lean more towards, you know, I mean, and Derek too, you know, it was like definitely more towards the, like, you know, we just want to help promote, like help get people that we think need to be heard out there, you know, and you know, Insomniac's been crushing it in terms of like everything that, you know, they've been doing on the back end to help keep the label operating and stuff like that. But, yeah, I don't even. Yeah. What was the question again?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Okay, just a couple more things that you brought up, and then we'll take a couple questions. One thing you had mentioned a second ago was the tour you did with Slander and Seven Lions and Glitch Mob, which seemed to me, it was cool. I actually ended up running into the tour randomly when I think you guys were in Baltimore, and I was just there walking around. Like I didn't even know there was a show happening. And I kind of ran into the Glitch Mob out there and stuck around and watched for a while. It was cool, man. Like, I don't know. I just want to hear your impressions and memories of that tour, because it struck me as a really different kind of tour than the tours that I think big name DJs usually do in our industry. Like, it almost felt more like a rock tour.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like that. I mean, you know, it was like the Glitch Mob, who's absolute legends, also 3 people. And then Seven Lions, you know, and his crew and everybody. And then us, which is also 3 people. And so it was like 3 giant ass tour buses, like 2 production buses, or like, you know, it was a big production, and we had our, you know, we had the Atom and everything. So, you know, we were basically, you know, putting all of our money back into making the show really awesome every night and things like that. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like that like definitely was a little bit like maybe halfway through that is when I was like starting to get into this phase of just like, I'm just so tired. Like I would literally like sleep until like, you know, do the show until 3 o'clock or whatever in the morning, try and sleep by 4, maybe 5 if I'm lucky, just because, you know, the bus is moving, you're just played a show and like everybody's awake or whatever, you know. And we by no means were like a party bus. Like everyone had girlfriends and like was just like sleep later or whatever. But everyone would be up, like, whatever, smoking weed and playing Mario Kart and, like, just whatever.
Yep.
And, yeah, we'd just wake up in whatever next city at, like, you know, 2 or 3 in the afternoon, try and, like, find, you know, do, like, a shower or, like, go to the hotel or, like, do some work if I have to do work for a few hours. And then, like, you're sound checking by, like, 8 o'clock, trying to eat food. And then, like, I don't know. It was just, like, bus tours are such a whirlwind of, like, stuff that, like, off stage, I like, it was like not even that memorable, but like on stage was just the best show, like every night, like the production, the execution of everything, the fans, like, and like, it was always such like, yeah, it was just very, very well run.
And a lot of it was like in outdoor amphitheater kind of venues, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was part of it too, is like, we had this such a big, awkwardly sized stage that like, we had to do very specific venues.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of times, you know, it had to be a venue with no ceiling or like whatever. So it was like, or it had to have like a 40-foot clearance or what, not 40, but it was something like that, you know, abnormally tall, you know, where we couldn't just fit it in there if it was like a smaller room. So, you know, that was part of the reason why we needed to do like a big squad tour with so many people. We could do these giant rooms and, but it was super memorable for the shows. Like every show was just so good. And like I said, it was, you know, really big rooms, like, you know, it was Bill Graham and like things like that. I mean,
I was talking to Justin from Glitch Mob, and yeah, I think it really, from their side too, I mean, he said they loved it and it was an incredible tour, but I think it really opened their eyes too, because I don't think they get to do those like EDM kind of shows, you know? And it was just cool, man. I think very rarely do you see that kind of like, you know, multi-style, multi-sound tours on that level.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it was great because, yeah, I don't know, Glitch Mob is like super cool, but less like wildly changing energies all the time. It's like more of mid-tempo vibe, like heavy, but not like literally killing people. And so it was like a little more melodic and cool and awesome. And then Seven Lions is like very melodic, but also very heavy. You know, it was cool. And then when me and Derek play together, it's always just like maximum like bass. So it felt like it had a nice progression throughout the night. Like some, you know, sometimes, I don't know, it is nice to have like slightly heavier music as the night progresses rather than just
I mean, it's brilliant to me. To me, it's like almost obvious that it should be that way, you know. But then I guess the majority of the industry doesn't really agree with me at this point.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's, I don't know, could go both ways, but
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I like a variety. I think as DJs and as producers, we listen to everything. We like everything. And so in my mind, it's like, well, just put everything on the stage at the same time. It'll be great.
Yeah.
But, you know, I get that not everybody necessarily feels that way.
I mean, I get it too. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a fan of having like, you know, slowly easing people in, kind of having the show grow in energy throughout the night and stuff like that. But obviously, promoters also are not way into that. They're just like, this is a bass show, therefore we need all bass people. That
which again, I get it. But yeah,
exactly. I do get it.
Yeah. Did you have any early on, like any weird shows you were opening where it like wasn't a good fit?
I really, the only time that I remember like maybe was like basically my first show that I did, like Nightmare show. I don't know if it was the first one, but it was pretty damn early, and I was opening for think it was for Alvin Risk.
Oh, nice.
Down in the observatory or something.
That
and my buddy
back,
Keon, who's like very close homie of all of us, but at the time he was like Derek and Scott's buddy, and they're like, he's gonna book you for a show. Like I had like just put out like my first Nightmare remix or something like that, like just, you know, like a week before or something. And yeah, I mean, I remember playing like the first half I was playing like Chami remixes. He was like just coming out with stuff and like cool chiller house stuff. And then the second half I played like, you know, like Tonight records and like things like Higher Ground, like and it was like, he was like, this is too, you gotta chill out. I was like, really? Oh, I didn't even like, it was like Lido songs. It wasn't even that crazy, but it was still just, you know, I was like, holy shit, on a massive sound system. It was like shattering bass. So I was like, I gotta play more house music. But really that was the only time. And one time the first time I ever played in Vegas too, I was like, I just was like, I don't even know.
That's a whole nother world, man.
It's a whole nother world. Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, and I was opening to First Lander, who was opening for Adventure Club or something like that. And I was like, and I was playing like the chillest possible house music. And I think it was just like a new club promoter guy who also had no idea what he was doing. He was like, we gotta play. It's gotta be more hype. Like, what's going on? And he was like,
he's just losing his mind.
Play more, like play top 40 stuff. And it was just like, oh, get me out of here.
Yeah, that's always trouble where it's like, that's not what I do, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, all right. A couple more questions. We'll take some questions from the audience. We'll get you out of here. But I wanted to make sure we came back for 2 seconds to talk about Tony Hawk, who you mentioned at the start of all of this. Yeah. You did this crazy live stream with Tony Hawk and a bunch of skaters, and you were the one who kind of put that together, right? Or at least you were one of the people involved in putting that together.
Yeah, but it was basically really huge shout out and credit to my boy Elliot Sloan. He's the one who hosted the event at his house. That skate ramp is literally at his house in San Diego. Or Vista, it's like kind of near San Diego. Oh, yeah. And I mean, we became friends when I would go down to San Diego. We randomly met one time, and he's a pro skater and just won a crazy amount of X Games gold medals, all this stuff. And we just became buddies, and he would come to my Omnia shows, and just one of the nicest, most genuine dudes I've ever met. And just, always have a blast hanging out. And I would go to his house, and he, kind of had the idea for this type of thing. He was like, I've always wanted to do this at my house. I built this whole thing. Like, we could put the stage here and all this stuff. And I was like, I mean, this makes sense. Like, it would be sick to do it. And he's like, yeah, like Tony Hawk is like my boy, and he lives down the street, and like Buggy Elastic and all these guys who like, I grew up, literally playing them as video game characters.
Were you a skater, or were you just playing the game?
I mean, I did a little bit, I had my skate phase, but I was not like a proper skater or whatever. But I, certainly enjoyed went to the X Games multiple times, like as a young kid, and loved watching extreme sports, like was way into it. And so I was like, amazing. Like, I would love to somehow figure out how we could, make this happen. And so, we kind of reached out to a few production teams and people, and we're trying to figure out like, okay, this is like not a small operation. Like, it's going to cost a good bit of money. Like, I don't know where we're going to get it. We tried going to different sponsorships like Rockstar and all these different people. And eventually Insomniac, like Pasquale, kind of got word of it, and we were like, hey, Cheetah and Pasquale, like people who do their productions, like, would you guys be into it? And Pasquale was like way into it. They've been kind of like looking at like doing stuff with X Games anyway recently, like just trying to find cool events and stuff. And so he really loved the idea, helped us put it together, and like Insomniac just crushed it. Like, literally, they came in, took everything over, just did it all. Like, we kind of had
great, yeah.
And it was like I kind of just was like, thank you for helping us make this happen. But it came out as a Nightmare and Elliot Sloan. And Elliot, provided the venue. He knew all the skaters, messaged everybody, and like got everybody there. And like, it ended up being great. I got to meet Tony Hawk for a little. He's a super nice dude, and like. He's just, I was very, very appreciative. It was super cool to meet him. And like, he literally rolled up like by himself, just had a little JanSport backpack and like a brand new pair of Vans, just came up, put them on, just ripped it for a bit. That's
perfect. Exactly what you want, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Good. That's so cool. And I mean, you want to talk about the marriage of like music and gaming, or music and virtual reality, any of that. I mean, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Like, I think the music was as important as the game in
100%.
Tony Hawk Pro
All those
Skater.
songs are like just hits. And I feel like he was definitely played a heavy part in curating the playlist, which was cool. So.
He's another one where you can tell he just gets it, you know?
Gets it. 100%.
Like he understands what's cool, even as a, you know, I don't even know how old he is now, but yeah.
No, for sure. He gets it. And I mean, yeah, it was nice. I mean, he came in too, and then, you know, it was like, oh, how much am I getting paid? Like, cool, just donate everything to whatever. You know, it's like great. It's just a super nice guy. And yeah, we donated to his like skate foundation. It's great.
That's fantastic, man. I think somebody in the chat said they were actually one of the people who helped film it. So nice. You got some crew in the chat as well.
There was a huge crew. Like, the shout out to everyone who made it happen, because there was like literally a front of house level size production like of a festival, like people doing lights and visuals and setting up the stage. And, you know, there was like a section of CDs. I was literally DJing on a what are they called? Those like crazy forklift, but not a forklift.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
A scissor lift, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And so I would like the whole time too, I was just like, I mean, it was a mission. It was a production. It was awesome. They did a great job. And yeah, I was just grateful to be a part of it for sure. It was really cool.
Yeah, man, that's great. Well, let's, I'm going to pull up the questions people have been submitting here. Nice. And I'm just going to throw a couple of them at you. Let me see what we got going on here. Yeah, okay, these are actually some good questions. Nice work, chat. Zach from Seattle, shout out Fano, who I think is just about to get on a plane. But he asked a question that I was actually thinking about too. And he says, your music is often very cinematic, which is a word I always think about when I think about your music. Have you done TV or movie scoring work?
So a tiny bit, not really much. I do love the idea of it. I think eventually I will score like some type of movie or type thing. I wrote like a pretty cool orchestral piece for my intro for the album. And then actually, funny thing, the people who were in this building essentially before we moved in here were like movie trailer scoring people. It was this company, Chroma, super nice people. And so originally I met up with them like 5 years ago, came here and like, you know, showed them some cool stuff. We like worked on some trailers together. And then this year for the album, I wrote like a piano piece, like, and then string piece and all that kind of stuff, and brought it to one of those guys and was like, can you help me turn this into like movie trailer status, like epicness? And so he did that. So the intro of the album's like this ridiculous like movie score status piece.
Oh yeah.
So I'm really excited for that. That was like the closest thing I've done. But other than that, I've actually I've been working on like my brother, I was saying, does TV stuff. So he's been producing does a lot of commercials, you know, and things like that. And we've been working on a TV show also for like literally years now. And it's finally coming to life, hopefully at the end of this year, probably early next year. At least we're going to start filming it.
That's amazing. You know what's funny, man, is I was listening back to our first podcast that we did 3 years ago. And you were kind of
talking about it.
Well, just a little bit. I don't think you had actually started working on it, but I think you had said something like, yeah, my brother has this idea for a travel show, but I want it to be made this way. And I don't know if you had even talked to him about it.
It's finally like, it's been 3 years literally of developing this show and editing the trailer, teaser type of thing. We partnered with, this company 3 Ball to pitch the show to people. We like pitched it all this for like a year. And then somehow during COVID, like we got a lead for like amazing. I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about who it's with, but you know, one of these major networks, new streaming service that's coming to every TV ever. And we got like a really awesome, you know, budget approved and stuff. And the thing is, it is a movie, music, travel, like, you know, it's centered around these super cool, unique experiences that you would otherwise never get unless you were a touring artist, basically. You know, and it's like, you know, I just went to Ethiopia, like I said, or not, you know, whatever, somewhere in Africa or in Eastern Europe or wherever. And I played a show and now I have 3 days off and there's this local host homie who's going to take me around and show me all these different things. That's kind of the gist of the show.
That sounds great.
And so cool, yeah. It's like almost like a Fuck That's Delicious. I don't know if you ever watched.
Oh yeah,
Action
shout
Bronson.
out Action Bronson.
Like
Yeah.
slightly more formal than that. Huge shout out Action Bronson. He's one of my favorite rappers. But yeah, that really inspired by that. Obviously, No Reservations is very inspired. Anthony Bourdain, like just someone who's out there experiencing the thing. It's kind of somewhere in between those, and it's supposed to be kind of this raw, like very organic kind of like filming style. But yeah, we're really excited. But scheduling has been a bitch because every single thing on earth has been canceled, and it's an international show. So it's like the plan was to do no dates or cities or shows or episodes in the States, and now we're like trying to schedule stuff in Amsterdam getting canceled and Germany getting canceled and all this stuff. So we're thinking it'll probably end up being filmed next year, and then I'll be able to talk about it and announce it and all that stuff like maybe next summer, hopefully.
Isn't it crazy how long these kind of projects take, man?
It's insane. Like, I mean, it's cool, but it's awesome. I mean, if it works out, I'll get to be an executive producer on this TV show. And even just from the progress of this, I've already started like helping produce like a couple of documentaries and things like that. So it's
incredible,
cool, like
man.
being able to get my hand in like movies and TV
yeah.
and
Well,
like
and I mean, that'll, if you haven't done it already, that'll probably give you plenty of scoring opportunities, right?
Exactly. That was kind of where I was going with that. Is like, I really hope to be scoring a little bit for this TV show that, we're producing. Part of almost pitching it to people is like, hey, like, by the way, I come along with the show. I can help make you original content and make some beats and like make some music, because a lot of times it's like an annoying thing. Like for people who are making TV shows, they're like, oh God, we need like hundreds of thousands of dollars to budget for like licensing music. And like, if they can not have to deal with that, like, can help, for us, we're only doing 6 episodes like or so, so far. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, it's still like in the development stages. Even it's not even fully like confirmed yet, but we're just still, it's been a super fun project to work on, and
of course, man,
to come together.
I'm excited for all that, man. It's so cool. Like I literally just heard us 3 years ago talking about that idea, so I'm really glad it's coming to fruition.
I'll send you the trailer.
Oh, dude, you can watch please, it. I would love that, man. That would be great. All right. So AJ from Chicago asks, this is kind of a wide open question, and I think we've talked about some of it, but he asks, what is still on the bucket list for NGHTMRE? And I guess I would sort of make that a little more specific and just say, like, what are your goals right now? What are you excited about? Obviously, we talked about the album. We talked about the TV show. Is there anything you haven't done yet that is one of those things like, man, I really want to do that one day?
I mean, I think for me, it's just traveling and like spending a bit more time exploring. Like getting like to go to these really exotic places a lot of times for a day or 2 days. It like really whets my appetite to like be traveling and exploring and like going to Southeast Asia and like spending 2 weeks and not like planning what I'm doing and just like experiencing it and exploring and doing all that kind of stuff. And, I just booked a show in Alaska next month, and like, I'm like, yes, send me to Alaska right now. Like, I'm going to go hike up there. Like, I really, really, really thoroughly like have been enjoying hiking and being outdoors and like, backpacking even, and like overnight, kind of stuff recently. So, I have some like very epic long hikes on my bucket list, like Pacific Crest Trail type stuff or like John Muir Trail type stuff. I don't think I'll ever be doing the entire thing for like half a year or whatever it takes, but I still want to do some like 100-mile segments or things like that.
Man, that's serious.
I mean, that's, an eventual goal. I definitely am not there yet, but, I really, really, really enjoy that type of stuff. And I think just getting to as many countries as possible, you know what I mean? It's like, I think Alaska is the last state that I need to go to. Maybe South Dakota, I've never been to yet.
Okay. But, are you going to Anchorage?
Yep, Anchorage.
Nice, man. Yeah, my dad's whole side of the family was from Alaska, and so I went up there a bunch as a kid, but I haven't been back as an adult. But my memories of it, man, is just so beautiful. Yeah.
I'm playing on a Friday and I have nothing Sunday through Thursday. So my plan is to go up early and like there's this, did go to Denali National Park and do some hiking out there. And
that'd be like fantastic,
outside. as much as possible. I like feel like the chaos of like making music all the time and touring and stuff, like I just have to have that like pure silence and like drinking glacier water and sleeping on the ground like half the time to like balance it out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, it's that's real balance right there.
Yeah.
All right, Blake from New Jersey. This is a good question because I wanted to talk just for a second. You know, you just dropped a new song with Young Pinch, and we've talked a bunch about, you know, how you approach hip hop collabs. He wants to know if in the next phase of what you're doing, you're going to be doing as many hip hop collabs, and if there's anything else you can talk about in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually the next single that I have coming out that I just am literally finishing up right now, I'm submitting the masters, is with Smoke Perp. We did a song that we've had done for a little while, and it's cool. It's super hype. It's like on some mosh pit kind of energy levels.
Yeah.
But it is a hip hop record only first, and I'm going to do a VIP, same kind of thing that I've been doing. For the album, I just have one, just the Ferg song is a hip hop. I have another one that's like way more chill. It's not like super hype hip hop, but it's very cool. It's kind of indie rock vibe. But yeah, that's one I was like saying I'm still kind of working on the feature. Honestly, most of the album stuff is not hip hop stuff. And I have like, I kind of in my mind have this separated of like a 4 or 5 song EPs worth of melodic music and a 4 or 5 song EPs worth of bangers that I've like finished with people. I've like got a song with like Ray Volpe and Zomboy and Sudden Death and a couple of these other awesome bass dudes that I love. Kind of like 4 or 5 songs that I'm really excited about that are bangers, more like heavier stuff. 4 or 5 songs that are melodic that I'm excited about, and then the whole album as well. So just trying to like put it all out. I feel like maybe it's not quite as much hip hop as before. I definitely have been kind of just falling back into like, what do I want to make today? Like just make a random nightmare sounding chords and drop.
I think that's good, man. I think it's
good. I love it a lot.
Yeah. You got to get back every once in a while. I think anyone doing anything creative, you got to get back to that. Just that's how it started, right? Like when you started being Nightmare, it's like, well, what do I want to make?
Yeah, totally.
Like that kind of energy.
I mean, the Fear and Love like song on the album, I was talking about those 2 separate songs. Like they feel like the most Nightmare stuff that I've made in a long time. It feels very like it would have been on the first Nightmare EP, but it's like a super hyped up, supercharged version of that.
I love hearing that, man. Yeah, I'm stoked to check all of that out. All right, real quick, Jared from Minnesota. This is a good question because I try to end usually dispensing a little wisdom, dispensing a little knowledge. He's asking about when you were at Icon, learning, production there, meeting some people who would, go on to be your friends kind of for life in this industry. And he's asking, do you think that's still a good way for starting producers to go right now? And kind of, he's asking the usual question of like, what's the best way to sort of meet people who have these interests if this is an industry you want to get into?
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever I get the Icon question too, I kind of always preface it with like, so much of it has changed the experience of Icon, and the price of Icon, and like, just all these things that, to each individual person, obviously they have a different scenario. So it's like, it doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. But for me, my experience at Icon, like I learned so much from the school and the curriculum, but realistically, most of the benefit that I got was from the people that I met being there. And, even like, just like I learned a ton from my professors, but I also learned a ton from the people in my class, even if it was just like, whatever, check out this cool synth I found and them showing me, or check out, here's like us sharing samples together and building my library up, and like just having, being in the studio and just sitting there, having somewhere you can go sit all day and there's people working on music around you all the time. And I think the other thing that helped me too is like when I moved to LA, I lived with, I was in a house with 5 guys and we all were doing the same thing too. So being around it all the time, like even, you come home from like, working on music and 3 people sitting on your couch working on music. And it made me want to work on music all the time, which was good. And I think, you know, for someone who's getting into it, like focusing on just working through a volume of shit of music and whatever it is you're working on, just doing more of it all the time is really how you're going to make the most progress in the music, you know, like in getting to the point where you're happy with how your music sounds. Like there's only so much networking and, you know, going to shows and things like that will benefit you. Realistically, in the end, it is the music that's going to set you apart and do all these things for you. So, you know, I think some people who like, you know, maybe don't have a great financial situation, can't pay for it or can't live out there or find a job right now. Obviously, COVID's like changed everything for everyone. But, you know, I don't think that like mentoring would be a bad idea or like finding someone, you know, who can kind of help you work through your questions that you just don't know the answer to. Cause that was the issue for me. Like a lot of what I got out of Icon too was the mentor session. Once a week, you go in and you have someone who's just sitting there and it's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Right. And you're just like, I was like, go through every single audio effect and show me what this one does and show me what this one does and show me where you like to use it and what every button does on this and everybody does on this. And it's like, you can always read the manual, but when you literally go and do it and have someone being like, yes, that's the correct answer that you're definitely looking for, rather than being like, I think this is the right answer on YouTube and stuff like that, it just makes things a lot easier. And, you know, in the meantime, be working through a volume of work and creating songs and just doing new stuff all the time, rather than, you know, spending 6 weeks on one song trying to get every detail of it perfect so you can then try to figure out how to market it and do all this stuff. It's like, all right, you should just be working until you have 10, 15 songs that you love and that are amazing and that you feel really confident with. And then, you know, then you can start, you know, maybe trying to reach out to management or sharing it with people who you think might be able to, you know, help put you on or whatever.
I mean, you're spot on, first of all, that it's the work that comes before anything, right? Like there's no, whether you go to Icon, you don't go to Icon, whether you're in LA or not, it doesn't matter if you're not working really hard.
Right.
Like that's
there's a million people who went to Icon and didn't do as much work as they should have, or didn't, you know, spend the time, whatever. Yeah. And there's plenty of people who did and still didn't succeed. You know, a lot of it's timing and a lot of it's, you know, that's the thing that's tough. And when you go to Icon, like their interview process, they're like, hey, if you're doing, you know, 15 years from now, if you have no success, like, are you going to be making music still? Or are you going to go do other shit? And it's like, they want people who are like, I want to do music for the rest of my life. Yeah. And so it's like, if you're looking at it like that and you're looking at it like not comparing yourself to other people and just as long as you're making progress forward, like.
Yeah, man. And, you know, if you, like you said, if Icon's not in the cards, if you don't have some kind of physical community, like, you know, just be resourceful. There's online communities, Reddits, Discords, all that kind of stuff. Like people are out there, but you just got to have something to offer. And that's where the work comes in.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And don't rely too much on other people, like critiquing your shit.
Big key right there.
I feel like using online resources and all those things can be super helpful, but can also be like, I don't know. You can just be like sharing it with a group of people or something. You're really excited about it, and no one in there is paying attention or whatever. And like, you know, it's just, I don't know. It can kind of, it's very easy to get in your own head again. Like I was saying, comparing yourself to other people or listening to someone's feedback when it's just an opinion about your song. And like realistically, you know, people can give good critical, like mixing feedback for you on occasion and stuff like that. But even like mixes nowadays, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, does it sound good to you? Like, sweet. Go, like that's what you should do then. Like, you know what I mean? It's like trust your ears.
Yeah, I mean that's almost like it's super hard when you're just starting off to have that perspective, right? Because I think now that you just said that, I'm sort of realizing I think that's part of artistic maturity is like I think I have less ego, so I'm more open to other people's comments. But then at the same time, I'm also much more ready to throw all those comments in the garbage if they don't really help me out or if they don't make sense to me, you know?
100%. Yeah. It's like, if you're getting caught up with like what an A&R is trying to describe to you, it's like, you know, sometimes it's just like, you know, it's like, it's too like boomy or something. You're like, what does that even mean? Like,
that's not a musical term.
Like, fuck. But sometimes that stresses people out or like, I don't really, you know, if someone doesn't like it, then it's like, what do you mean? Like, like, you can't worry about that.
Yep. No, you got it. If you like it, that's the only, I think that's maybe the if we sum it up in one sentence, it's, you know, if you like it, don't let anybody else tell you differently.
Yeah.
Man.
Totally.
Well, it's been great talking to you, dude. I'm really glad to catch up. I can't believe it's been 3 years since we did this last.
I know. Let's not do another 3 years.
I know, man. Like, yeah, absolutely. Whether it's a podcast or not, man, I really hope to run into you soon. Let's get some lunch, some dinner, something.
Dude, 100%. I'm extremely down.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I know we ran a little long, so I appreciate it.
Oh, it's all good. I'm chilling today. So
good.
Easy.
What are you doing for the rest of the day? You making tunes?
Yeah, I literally this Smoke Perp masters are due tonight. So I worked on it this morning, and then this is my ear resting time, and now I'm gonna go re-listen and either be like, oh god, this is terrible. Like, oh, this sounds great.
Back to the deadline grind, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey man, you look great, you sound great. It's great to see you, man.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. Always a good time. Always appreciate good interview questions.
Hey,
definitely
man.
is the worst when you just have an interview where someone's just like, you're the best at what you do. So I appreciate
that means so much, man. Thank you. And to be honest with you, the like getting shitty questions and being annoyed with them is literally why I started this podcast.
Yeah. I believe it.
Oh man, buddy, love you. Great to see you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Peace, brother.
All right. Bye, man.
Later.